and I am here to teach you how to plan an outdoor catering event successfully. First of all, before we go into the business of today, I would like to tell you a little about myself and how I ventured into the business. Like I said earlier, my name is Sochima and I studied economics in Madonna University, Okija. I graduated with a 2-1, and after graduation, it was difficult for me to get a job. So while trying to get a job, and I decided to venture into the outdoor catering events, which was very good because it's a very lucrative business. It's easy to start up, it's easy to operate. You need little or no startup capital, and every equipment you need or every tool you need can be hired. I'd like to start by telling you what catering is. Catering can simply be defined as the preparation, delivery and presentation of food for clients. That is the simplest definition of catering. Now, catering is divided into two aspects. You have the indoor catering and the outdoor catering. Indoor catering is when you prepare food and serve it at the same location. For instance, you have restaurants. Restaurants are indoor catering outfits because where the food is prepared is where it is served. While outdoor catering is when you prepare the food and serve it at a location away from your food production facility. That is what I'll be teaching you today. I'll be teaching you how to cater an outdoor event like a wedding reception. On a degree of difficulty scale from 1 to 10, let's say 1 means easy and 10 means more challenging or more difficult. Indoor catering will rank a 2, while outdoor catering would be a 10. That is because when outdoor catering is compared to indoor catering can be seen as being more challenging. But for a starter, you don't have to be afraid, you don't have to worry, because this tutorial I will give you a step-by-step guide on how to plan an outdoor event successfully. Now, what do you need to start this business? What is required to start the business? You don't need much. The startup capital to start the business will always be given to you because your clients are expected to make an initial deposit before you deliver the service. And every equipment or tool, your utensils can all be hired, from the pots to the buffet dishes to tables and plates, spoons, glasses. Everything needed for the business can be hired. Now, you also need a place to cook, and that is not a big problem because you can use your kitchen. Everybody has a kitchen. You just need a place to keep a stove or firewood or gas cooker to cook. That's all you need to start the business. Now, you might be asking yourself, how do I get customers? How do I locate customers for my business? It's quite easy. Actually, when I started, I had to start by word of mouth, by telling 1 or 2 people, this is what I'm into, I'm an outdoor caterer. So I'll say the first method is word of mouth. You tell 1 or 2 people, your friends, your acquaintances, I am an outdoor caterer, I can cater your event, your wedding reception, your birthday party, your anniversary celebration, whatever. And I actually got my first customers by this method. The second method I'll say is the social media. Like, now this is the computer age, this is the digital age. So on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, I told 1 or 2 people that I am a caterer, I am an outdoor caterer, call so and so number to cater to your event, and I got some customers by that method. Also, I got some customers by referrals. When I had some clients, they referred other people to me. So you always get customers. Once you cater to 1 person, be sure that you will always get more customers, because your catering to that event is like an advert. Once you get it right, you will always get more customers. Other methods which might cost a little money are by the use of business cards. I got a friend to make mine for me at a very cheap rate. So you could also use flyers. Flyers, they are kind of expensive, but they are affordable. You could also choose to place your adverts in newspapers or magazines. Like when I started, you might not want to go for the national dailies, which are quite expensive. They cost about 100,000 or 150,000 to place a simple advert. You might go for your local newspapers, maybe your church bulletins or magazines. Like this one, this is my church bulletin. I placed an advert in here for less than 5,000 naira. So that was a means. At least I got several customers In outdoor catering, there are three phases. You have the pre-event phase, the event phase, and the post-event phase. Now, the pre-event phase are all the preparations you do prior to the event. These are the shopping, cooking the food, everything you do prior to the event can be categorized under the pre-event phase. The event phase is what you do during the event proper, the activities carried out during the event proper. While the post-event phase are the activities carried out after the event, like cleaning up and all of that. Now, pre-event phase, I'll say, will take about 60% of your energy and resources, because most of the work done during the catering events are done during the pre-event phase, while the event phase will take like 30%, and then the post-event phase will take about 10%, because you're just trying to tidy up, to clean up and leave a good impression on the minds of your clients. Now, planning has to be done to cover all three phases of the event. You don't have to leave anything to chance. It's very important that you pay attention to details in all phases of the event. The pre-event phase is just as important as the event phase, and the event phase is just as important as the post-event phase. Even though more work is done here, you don't have to say, okay, the pre-event phase is more important than the post-event phase. No. If you want to be a successful outdoor caterer, you have to know that all phases of the event are equally important. Now, like I said, all phases of the event are equally important. And as an outdoor caterer, or someone who is planning to venture into the outdoor catering business, it's very important that you pay attention to all details, because you have only one chance to get it right. One mistake could mean the end of your business. It could ruin your reputation, and be sure you won't get any other clients. So it's very, very important. In order to thrive in this business, you have to always get it right. Okay, now we'll start our planning with the pre-event phase. Like I said earlier, the pre-event phase consists of all activities done before the event proper, or prior to the event. Now, the pre-event phase will usually start with meeting your clients. Let's say you used all the methods successfully and you got one client. Now, for that one client, you have to meet with the client, which is the first step. The first step is meeting with the client. For meeting with the client, you have to take note that you are dressed properly and you are punctual. You have to be professional, but don't overshadow friendliness with professionalism. Make sure you are professional and also be friendly, be approachable. Your client should be able to talk to you, to reason with you. So that is a very important point to note. Secondly, you have to go with a notebook or an organizer. I have one here. This is what I use in planning my events, because there are a lot of details involved in planning an event and your brain can't just take all of them in. So you need to go with a notebook or an organizer. So this notebook is where you take in all the important details of the event, the date, the venue, the time, all other details, like minor details, like the kind of food they would like you to prepare, the kind of service they would want. Do they want buffet service? Do they want their food to be packaged? And then the prices, things, other details that I might not be able to mention here. Just make sure you take down everything so that you won't make a mistake on that day. Now, after you've taken down all the details you discussed, you don't have to be in a hurry to give your clients a price, so that you won't make a mistake. Maybe you might undercost some items. Make sure you go back home, do the costing, and then you might call your clients maybe a day or two later to give them a price. Usually in outdoor catering, the pricing is done per head or per plate. If you're serving 100 guests, you might choose to price your food at 500 naira per head or 500 naira per plate. That would be a total of 50,000 naira. So now the items of cost that you need to include before giving a final price are, I just outlined some of them here. You need to get the cost of food items. For instance, if you'll be preparing a plate of jollof rice with salad and chicken, you need rice, you need vegetable oil, you need some carrots and cabbages and all of that. You need chicken. So you need to cost all of this for the number of guests. Let's say we are planning a wedding reception for 100 guests. So how much rice will you need to serve 100 guests? How much chicken? How much salad is required? When you cost that, you also, the cost of utensils and equipment need to be included. The cost of the plates, the spoons, cutlery, the glasses, the different glasses you'll be using. The cost of buffet pans and dishes is very important. Even if you are using your own personal equipment, you are not hiring, it's also important for you to include this because of depreciation. You know, as you use the equipment, they are depreciating in value. So it's very important for you to include the cost of utensils and equipment. You also include transportation. Transportation is transportation to and from the market to buy the food items. Transportation to and from the venue of the event. So make sure you include the cost of transportation. Make sure you include the cost of labor. Usually you won't be able to do everything on your own. You will need one or two hands to help out. Maybe a few friends or people you could just employ on a part-time basis, which needs to be paid. So it's very important for you to include the cost of labor. The cost of labor. Labor includes your servers, cooks, and your assistants, anybody who is helping you out. You have to include the cost. Now the cost of cooking fuel, like gas. If you choose to use gas, you include the cost of gas. If you choose to use firewood, you include the cost of firewood. If you choose to use kerosene, whatever cooking fuel you choose, make sure you include the cost. Now you also have to include a small amount, a small charge for hidden costs. Hidden costs are things that, you know, they don't seem important at first, but they are very necessary for the success of an outdoor catering event. So things like toothpicks, they seem very minor, but they are very important. Serviettes and little charges here and there that you might spend. So just include just a small amount. It doesn't need to be too much. Now finally, don't forget your caterer's fee. You're doing business, and the purpose of every business is to make profit. So you can't do a business for them free of charge. You have to make your own profit. So this caterer's fee covers your profits. Okay. Now I think after doing all of this costing, and now you add it up, your total amount divided by the number of guests, if I arrive at maybe 50,000 divided by 100 guests, then I have 500 naira per head or 500 naira per plate. It's quite simple. If you're doing for 200, you know, just like that, you can do the maths. Now finally, when you agree on this price, you communicate with your clients that, okay, this is the price I have arrived at. If your client chooses to beat it down, then you know that you yourself, you have to beat down the quality of your food or the quality of your service, because all clients are not equal. All clients are not the same. Some might be operating on a very low budget, and as a caterer, you are supposed to fit in your service into the kind of budget they have. You know, you are just starting up, so you can't reject any clients. So for a start, if the price is too high, higher than your client's budget, you can cut it down, maybe cut down some things here and there, and make sure you give them quality service for the price they have or for that will go with their budgets. After doing this, you have agreed on everything, the price and everything. Make sure you issue an invoice or receipt, or if you have someone who can draw up a contract for you, it's also very good, so that there will be no arguments along the line on how much was I giving, how much is left to be paid. So it's very important you get an invoice or a receipt. An invoice costs about 150 in the market. They have local invoices you can use. It seems very small, but it's very important. So make sure you get one. Now, after agreeing on a price with your clients, it's important for you to research where you can get food items, quality food items at relatively cheap prices. You know, you'll be shopping for a large number of guests. So it's important, in order to cut costs, that you know where you can get such food items at relatively cheap prices. Non-perishable food items can be bought a month or a week prior to the event. You don't need to wait till 2 days or 3 days to the event before you start doing all your shopping. It will be very stressful. So shopping should be done for non-perishable items, should be done few weeks before the event. Once you have the cash, go to the market and get the non-perishable food items. We're talking about things like the rice, bags of rice, vegetable oil, tin food, canned food. Make sure you check the expiry dates and the NAFDAC registration numbers, so you won't give people adulterated products to eat. Things like that, all things non-perishable can be gotten few weeks before the event. While perishable food items like the meat, some vegetables, like carrots, cabbages, tomatoes, pepper, all of that could be gotten 3 days or 2 days to the event in order to preserve the freshness. Okay, after doing the shopping, you have to make sure that the vehicle to be used for the transportation to and from the event is in working condition. If you are hiring a vehicle, make sure that that vehicle will be available on that day and that that vehicle will be in working condition. You have to inform the driver. It is very important, because on the day of the event, it's not a day for you to start running around for a flat tire or any of those things. So you make sure that the vehicle to be used for transportation is in working condition prior to the event. You can check that like 2 or 3 days before the event. If you are using your own vehicle, it's also important for you to check your vehicle, take your vehicle for servicing, check the tires, check everything, so that you won't disappoint your clients on the day of the event. Okay, you also have to check the equipment to be used, like your stoves, if you are baking, the ovens, so that those equipment don't disappoint you on when you buy your food items. Then maybe one of the equipment stop working, maybe your freezers stop working. So it's very important for you to make sure that all equipment to be used, freezers, ovens, and all of that, should be in working condition before you start buying the perishable food items. Also, you must also check that all workers or staff who will be working with you that day are available. They are on ground. You have to double check. Don't just assume that, okay, I've called so and so person and I'm sure. Remember, you're just starting up. You might not be able to pay full-time staff, but make sure the part-time staff you have are available on that day. Maybe your friends or brothers or sisters who are to help you will be there, will be available for you on that day. Double check all of this prior to the event. Now, before the event proper, you could also choose to visit the venue of the event to be sure that you got the address right. So you can visit the venue, just look around. You can ask the decoration people where you are going to set up your buffet stand and how the seating arrangement will look like, so that you'll be able to organize your staff and your equipment on that day. Now, for the cooking of the food, it could be done a day or two before the event. There are some foods that can be prepared prior to the event, so that on that day, on the main day of the event, you don't have a lot of work to do and you work in a relaxed atmosphere. Things like meat, you can season your meat and fry it a night to the event. You could grind your tomatoes and all of that a night to the event. Just make sure your freezer is in working condition. Wash your meat, prepare the ingredients and store in your freezer, so that on that day you won't be in so much of a hurry and you won't work under stress, under pressure. Now, after you've done all of this, make sure that while cooking the food, that food is well cooked. You don't have to overcook the food or undercook it, especially the vegetables. You have to take care that the vegetables are not overcooked. And make sure the meat is tender. Don't undercook the meat, so that it won't be too tough when people are trying to eat it. Also make sure that all ingredients are used in moderation, like pepper, salt, and all of that. Make sure it's used in moderation, because it's food that a lot of people will eat. So you don't have to cook it to your own personal taste. Like if you're somebody that likes pepper, You don't need to put too much pepper in the food that you're serving at an event. Make sure the pepper is used in moderation and everything is done nicely. Now, transporting yourself to the venue. You finished the preparation and all of that. If you start cooking on time, you should be able to at least get to the venue on time before the guests start arriving. If you live in a busy city, like let's use Lagos in Nigeria for an example. If you live in a city like Lagos, you know you need to give time for traffic. If the event is scheduled to start by 12 noon, maybe you can choose to leave your house by 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. depending on the distance and the traffic. But if you stay in a city that is less busy, like Uyo or Ikotekpene, you could just give yourself maybe an hour or so. Just give yourself enough time to get to the venue and set up your equipment before the guests start arriving. It doesn't look professional for you to start setting up your equipment, running around when the guests are already seated. So you have to take note of all this before the event. Now moving on to the event proper. Like I said earlier, the event phase, we've done like 60% of the work during the pre-event phase. So now we are now on the D-Day. This is the time to show your clients that you can really deliver. So during the event phase, it will take like 30% of your energy. If you had done your homework in the pre-event phase, this shouldn't be a problem for you. So here are some tips for the event phase. Like I said earlier, you have to arrive on time. Make sure you are there on time. You set up your stand beautifully. Set up your stand beautifully, nicely. Everything, presentation is everything in catering. So make sure your food is well presented. If you're packaging, make sure it's well packaged. Just make sure the presentation is nice. Now, if you will need to serve using trays, like maybe from the buffet stand, you are going to serve the guests. Let's take a look at this chart over here. You have the buffet stand here, and this is the wedding venue. This is the event venue where you're holding the wedding reception. Remember, we are using the wedding reception as an example, and we said we are serving about 100 guests. So you have your buffet stand set up somewhere here. The stage should be somewhere here. This is the high table, and these are the tables where the guests are seated. So when you set up your stand here, it's very important for you to station servers to different tables or different rows, as the case may be, because you don't want a situation whereby some people are served and some are not served, like most events that we attend these days. You find out that maybe some people, maybe only this area is served and then the rest are without food, and maybe the high table too is served, which is very wrong. Remember, you are doing business and you have to satisfy your customers. So now, if you station a server here, server 2 handles table 1, 2, 3, 4. Server 3 handles table 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Server 4 handles table 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And server 5 handles table 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Server 6 can handle the high table. Now, it depends. You don't need to use maybe one server per row. It depends on the number of guests seated at the table. You can have 4 guests at a table, which one server could be enough, which means one person is serving about 16 to 20 guests, which is not too much. But a situation whereby you have about 8 to 10 guests seated at a table, you can station 2 servers. So the number of guests that will attend the event will usually determine the number of servers you will need. So all of this is just to prevent confusion and rowdiness during the event. Now, one person will always remain here at the buffet stand. Maybe you and one other person, or 2, as the case may be. In a situation whereby you're not using trays, you don't have to serve one by one. Maybe the guests have to file out, queue for their food, serve themselves. That's the real buffet. You have to queue. Your servers will be stationed here so that they can assist the guests with plates and all of that, dishing and all of that, and to avoid rowdiness. You have to do all you can to avoid rowdiness during the events, because people can be very impatient when it comes to food and when it comes to events like this. So try as much as possible that your event is well organized to avoid rowdiness. Now you will notice that at many events, the buffet stand is usually crowded and there's usually confusion because people can be very impatient. So what most people do these days, if your guests will line up here to collect food at the buffet stand, what they do is that they issue tickets to all the guests. Once you come here, you submit your ticket to the server and you accept food and you go back to your seat. The server will collect the guest ticket and then they accept food or they serve themselves and they go back to their seats. That's to avoid rowdiness. Make sure that the guests are all in a queue and your servers need to be smart so that people don't stand on the queue for too long. Once they have to be smart in serving the food to avoid rowdiness there. It's very important. Now, after that, please, you need to educate your servers on manners, simple courtesies like please, excuse me. All those kind of things cause confusion in events. You have servers insulting guests, which is not good at all. So please make sure your servers are educated before the event that you need to say thank you. No, let them know that the customer is always right. So no matter what, they should avoid arguments or quarreling with the guests. Now, when you've done all of this, you also have to make sure that your servers are well dressed. For instance, most caterers in Nigeria, they go with the simple jeans and t-shirt look and maybe a face cap. It's neat, it's presentable, it's okay. But you might also want to take it a step further. Maybe you might choose to make special uniforms for your guests. But I will advise, as a starter, you can go with the simple jeans and t-shirts. You might choose to get your own t-shirts, which is not quite expensive, like 500 naira for one. You can choose to go with that, or you can just tell your servers, maybe all of you just go on simple white t-shirts. Make sure they are well dressed, they are neat, and the male, they have to shave their beards very well and their hair. And the female, they need to pack their hair as well so that the hair doesn't get into the food that is being served. Now, after you've done all of this, you can be sure that you have catered that event successfully. Now, after this, we go into the post-event phase. Post-event phase just takes about 10% of our resources, our energy, our time. So it doesn't take too much. Now, the post-event phase, like I said earlier, has to do with all activities that are involved after the event, like the cleaning, the packing, paying up, everything has to do with activities after the event. So here are a few tips to note. For the cleaning of the event venue, most times in Nigeria, the cleaning of the event venue is left to the organizers of the events, maybe the clients or that. So, but in as much as the cleaning is left for other people, you as the caterer, you don't have to be careless with your debris. Make sure you pack all leftover food, use serviettes, use paper towels. Pack them very well in plastic bags. Pack all your equipment and utensils used. Pack them very well. Don't just leave debris lying all over the place. It makes you look irresponsible as a caterer. So please, after the event, when you finish serving, make sure you tell the people working for you that they don't pour leftover food on the floor. Provide plastic bags, they are not expensive, for them to pour all leftover food and dispose them properly. Now, after you've done that, all utensils used for the event, the spoons, plates, glasses, whatever utensil is used for the event has to be packed, because you know you're just starting and most of these things, if not all, are hired. If you misplace any of the utensils, you will have to buy for the owner. You have to replace it, which is eating into your profit. So make sure that you are very careful with the utensils, especially the spoons and plates. So after guests have left, pack all your plates, all your spoons, pack them very well, load them into your van or whatever vehicle you are using for transportation and take them back to where you're coming from. Now, if you have part-time workers, like you should have since you're just starting, make sure you pay them, because there will always be a second time. you're expecting to have more clients, and you will need these people again. So if you don't treat them well the first time, they won't be there for you the second time. So make sure you pay them, you treat them well. Even during the events, you don't need to talk carelessly to your workers. It doesn't speak well of you as a caterer. So make sure you're very polite and you're well mannered. Now at the end of all this, you've cleaned, you've packed, you've gotten to your house. Make sure you wash the utensils and equipment used. Return those that should be returned. Like if you hired some pots or plates, make sure you return them to the owners. If they are your own, wash them, dry them, and keep them safely for the next use. After you've done all of this, don't forget to tell your clients thank you. I think that should be the last one. Though it's not very popular in Nigeria, but it's a very good idea to leave a lasting impression on the minds of your clients. Make sure you say thank you. How can you say thank you? A simple SMS can do. Thanks for your patronage. It's okay. It will always, they won't forget that little act of gratitude, and you are sure to get more referrals. And if you can afford it, like the wedding reception we catered, in quotes, imaginary catering, we just catered here, you could send them a wedding present. It won't cost much. Maybe simple household equipment of 3,000 naira should do. So after you've done all this, you can be sure that you have catered your event successfully. You've covered the pre-event phase, the event phase, and the post-event phase, and you are now a successful outdoor caterer. Thank you for listening.